I relapse, you're a shrink, right? I relapse. Relapse is a part of recovery, isn't it? Please.
I'll let you in on a little trade secret. That AA stuff is total bullshit. All Chris wants is to know that his father loves him. Like every other kid. And you betray him over and over and over again. Because you like to get high. You could give a fuck about your son. I know you, Mark. We've met 1,000 times. And why did you really come back?
I love my son. I want to get better. I want my family back. Please.
Hello, listening people.
Hello.
It's me, Ryan, here with my dear, dear friend, who's also a podcasting co-host, Bartek. How are you going, Bartek?
And I'm Bartek.
You are always going to do some weird little thing when it comes to this introduction, aren't you?
Weird little thing, the thing that I always say.
Yeah, but it is weird when it's no longer needed in the context of a natural flow of conversation.
And you're listening to
Exactly.
Spit
Here
and
we go.
Polish
Here
presents
we go.
Unappreciated Masterpieces.
Oh, there we are. After 300 plus episodes, it's down to a fine routine.
And it's up to our spooky month.
Yeah, I was thinking about if I should have left this for Spooky Month, but then I was just like, hey, I want to watch it.
I think I picked something like a month or two ago that I was like, maybe I should have waited.
Yeah. Poultrygeist.
I think it might have been Poltergeist, actually.
We are Spin Polish I Can Lead because we're always spitting, and we both happen to be Polish, and we are doing our show Pictures Powwow, in which we talk about a movie that was recommended by one of us, or even you, the listening people. You can recommend movies. In fact, the next movie we are going to be discussing after this will be one of your recommendations. So get on to it, people.
Yeah.
Hit us up on the social medias or email to give us films to put on the list that we can cover.
Remember, when you listen to the end of this episode and you hear what movie is coming in the next episode, you have to own that recommendation.
That's yours now.
Doesn't matter who specifically recommended it, you own it.
It's yours.
You own
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
Which, that's a movie that we've done, not just a bunch of S's, just to let anyone who doesn't know.
So I recommended the movie that we are doing today called Bloodline from 2018, if I'm not mistaken. That's the year.
Correct.
Starring Sean William Scott, if that is his correct ordering of the name. I'm not getting it all mixed up there. It's not actually William Sean Scott or some bullshit like that. So this is a horror movie, a thriller, slasher film, I guess, in a way of speaking, a serial killer film. So if you haven't seen the movie, I'll give you a quick rundown and then tell you to piss off and watch it for yourself, because we are going to be talking about it in detail. But the premise is Sean William Scott, Mr. Funny Man himself, as an actor, takes a dramatic turn in this horror film in which he plays a social worker who takes it upon himself to improve the lives of his clients through violent means.
He becomes a daddy very early on in the film, and he's in a different sort of way to tradition, a very family-oriented man.
He's a family man,
yes,
as they say in Dexter, which is something that this relates to a lot.
Okay.
So that is it, people. Go away now. Go away now. We are going to be talking about
That's a reference
Bloodline.
to a thing.
Yeah, it's me referencing me saying go away now.
I'm the one that said
go away now, bud. Bloodline, history relationship with this, not too complicated for myself. When it came out, I heard some buzz about it. I saw an interview or two with Sean William Scott talking about preparing to play a serial killer. That piqued my interest. I saw, I think, an interview with him on Conan O'Brien's show. I watched a review at the time of it coming out, and it just kind of lingered in the back of my brain going, oh, that sounds like something you could watch, Ryan. That sounds interesting. I always, as a person, I'm always keen on seeing an actor who is known for one specific type of thing, whether it be a persona or a genre, specifically comedy, turning doing a 180 degree and just pivoting elsewhere. And I'm always rooting for actors to do that. And Sean William Scott, as mentioned on this podcast before, is an actor I like quite a lot. I've enjoyed his performances over the years, even though I didn't enjoy him as much in Dude, Where's My Car? I do like him. So it was also, that was the draw. It's a stunt casting movie. Do you want to see Stifler kill people? And I did. So I've had it in my watch list. I've had it just sitting there waiting to go. And I just thought, I'm in the mood to watch it now. Let's do it on the podcast.
Yeah,
that's it.
You should put in a trilogy with The Guest and The Nightingale.
Oh, yeah?
For films with actors stepping out of their comfort zones.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You got it. And Paul Giamatti in Big Fat Liar, in which he stepped out of his comfort zone of being an Oscar-nominated actor to being a Razzie-nominated actor. Delicious.
I was just thinking, because this film came out in 2018, Bloodline. This film is younger than our episode on Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, Dukes of Hazzard. Yes.
Which he was in, and it was like, oh,
Sean William Scott, yes.
He hadn't yet done Bloodline when we were talking about that movie.
That's true. He had done American Reunion, the American Pie reunion movie that no one talks about.
One of the two American Pie films I've seen.
That and American Pie?
No, one of the spin-offs that Stifler wasn't even in.
Bandcamp.
I think it was called Beta House.
I'm so sorry.
Is that one of the bad ones?
I mean, any after American Pie is the bad one. So there you go, I say.
Hey, in American Reunion, I really like the reunion scene where it was like, oh, all these characters you remember, and I didn't know any of them.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You, Bloodline, talk to me. What's your history? What did you go in with?
I hadn't heard of it when you recommended it. I think that I might have made that known last episode. I can't remember, but I trust myself.
This isn't the Netflix TV series Bloodline either, people, which you had heard of because I mentioned it like 3 episodes ago.
No, yeah, 3 years ago even. Yeah, it's a memorable one you've talked about. And certainly not a Netflix thing because I couldn't find it on any streaming services. This film really does feel kind of under the radar.
It's a Blumhouse movie, though.
Yeah,
small fish.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. I think when I was looking up where to find it, I might have glanced at the first half of a brief synopsis that said basically that he was like a family man who would do anything for his wife and kid, and that was it. So I was like, okay, well, that's what I'm walking in with. So I didn't know anything. So when the film begins with like a nurse walking through a hallway, getting undressed and having a shower, I'm like, am I watching the right film? Because the spot that I was watching it on, it had a list of actors, but it didn't mention Sean William Scott at all. So I'm like, oh no, is this another The Covenant situation? Am I watching the wrong film? But then I looked up who the director of the thing I'm watching is, who the director of the film I know is. I'm like, okay, it's the same.
Did you remember I told you it was a horror film?
Yes.
Okay, so the nurse all alone at night walking through and having a shower scene didn't make you comforted going, oh, it's a horror film.
Well, that's not enough for me because, again, the lead actor wasn't written there. So
right.
So, yeah.
Nah, I never look at those things. So then the film proceeded to go along, and what did you think?
Let's start with you, Ryan. What did you think?
Bartek doesn't want to say that he hated the movie. You know what I thought of? When I finished the film, many people make comparisons to the TV series Dexter, in which the TV series Dexter is about a creep serial killer whose whole thing is, I'm not a freak because I kill other serial killers. That's how I'm good, and I work for the police. I'm just a criminologist guy. I'm good. And he's trying to pretend to be a normal person, but he's a psychopath, so he's kind of incapable of doing that. And many people draw comparisons to this. And even in that show, there is this great... It's probably when the show stops being good. John Lithgow plays one of the big bads of the season, and his whole thing is, I'm a family man. Like, he has a family, and he is also a serial killer. But he's all justified because he's a family man. I'm doing it for my family. And people draw comparisons to Bloodline with that, and I get it. But I couldn't help but feel that this was Nicholas Winding Refn territory, in which it's neon lighting, very slow, atmospheric, minimal dialogue, synthy score, brooding antagonist with gloves on, remind me of Drive in some portions, especially because he drives a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That weird balancing act of taking the premise at face value, taking the premise as a silly B-movie, gaudy thing, taking the premise as a dark comedy. That's where I'm at after watching this. I am a fan of the film, but it is definitely one that I'm a fan of because it isn't the greatest. I look at this and I go, man, that's great, that's great, that's great. This is really good. This could be better, though. This section here, this section there, I would have punched this up. I would have liked this to be improved upon. So it is a movie that I'm drawn to because it has enough elements that work. It has enough nuances and subtleties. The performances are consistently pretty great. It has some great intense scenes as well as great comedic scenes. But also a part of what draws me to it is it doesn't quite work. It doesn't all quite come together, but
So
I see the puzzle pieces there and I just want to grab them and go, here, put them here.
That's pretty similar to what we were saying a couple of episodes ago. I think it might have been Bogus Journey, where it was like, it's a film that we like, but we realize it's not perfect, but that's kind of part of the charm of it.
Yes.
Yeah, because I feel very similarly. I had a really good time with it. But I could see that, like, oh yeah, it is a bit weak here. I can see why, it just had mixed reception based on what I was looking up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I watched it at night.
Same.
Yeah, I got into the mood of it. I was interested the whole way through. There were some, little twists and turns there that I was like, oh yeah, I could have used a bit more of that. Maybe a bit more with the mum. Maybe a bit more of, cause the third person that he kills brings up a whole,
list of things.
It's like, oh yeah, you could have explored that a bit more. And then after that, it kind of becomes a film of, just trying to evade getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
Like the film begins very strongly, especially in terms of like the violence and the explicit nature of some of the things we see. It kind of
practical effects.
It kind of reminded me of when we did Killing of a Sacred Deer. That film opened on like a throat surgery or something like that.
Yeah.
In this, we see a birth being given.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a lot.
So I was that kind of put me in the not the mood, but like
it set the tone.
It set the tone of and expectations of like, okay, we're going to see a bit more like this, and definitely in terms of like the violence, it's very quick and brutal. Yeah,
and stylized as well. Especially with like them holding up the knife, and it has reflections of the people perfectly with like that shine on the tip of the knife, like that type of thing. Very Italian horror.
Yeah, and then
Giallos,
and then in the next shot, which is a bit further back, there's no light on it at all.
Yeah, because now it doesn't need to be that dramatic.
Yes.
That's fascinating because I found myself liking the second half of the movie a bit more than the first half. I actually was happy with the minimal we got of the mother. It was a classic case of the movie saying, here's some information about this guy's past and his relationship with his mother. You fill it out. And I filled it out the way that I think the movie may have wanted me to, but I was satisfied with that. What I crave is actually a lot more built up in the first half. So I would have loved to see more of and I can't say genuine in the real sense of it, but a semi-genuine dynamic and relationship with each one of the kids. Because there comes a point in which
one of them
in particular, but no, there's even the other kid too, who's like sad that his dad has disappeared and then sad that he's dead. There is that dramatic meat that is wanting to be bit in here that they do try, but they just didn't put enough at the beginning of he thinks he's doing right by these kids, but in fact he's doing wrong by them. He is taking something away from them, but he thinks that's a good thing. And there's so much dramatic value to be played with there. But since the kids at the beginning aren't really developed themselves, they come across as just objects in the script. And so when we have dramatic scenes with them later on, they rung a little hollow for me because they never felt real. Yet think about it. If the film earlier set up more of a semi-genuine rapport with these characters, the emotional weight of it all would have been a lot better. And I say semi-genuine because the film does clearly define he is a psycho. He can't have genuine love and connection with others. But as an audience, I would have liked to have felt that and then have the dramatic irony and weight be played with the fact of he's basically playing God with these children and basically being a parentalist figure in their lives, and yet he is it's hypocritical and making long-lasting damage that he will never see because he's only seeing them in this one small prism of their life.
He's seeing them as like exactly the same as his situation.
Yeah, that too. He's projecting his own warped perception of his childhood onto them.
My father was awful. You're having problems with your father. Therefore, getting rid of your father will help you in the way that I think it helped me. I agree with you because when we first introduced to the kids, it's in this montage of like, he's talking to them, bell goes, they leave. Then he's talking to the next one, bell goes, they leave. And it came across to me more like these are just random kids. Like, I didn't realize that there were only like 3 in particular.
Yeah.
Because like earlier when I said like, oh, that one in particular, what I was saying was like, oh, that one kind of gets most of the attention because he's the one who's like the most well off. Yeah. He's got the most, the most relationship with this guy, like friendly. They call each other. He actually supports him.
The kid has benefited off of the help of the main character the most. Yeah. So the rapport is built up there. While the other 2 characters, the other 2 kids, they aren't getting anything out of him as a resource.
Yeah, I didn't really, factor in the fact that like, oh, we're only seeing 3 kids. And I didn't really focus on those other 2 until, we had the scene of the other guy who's like the oldest brother was like, I'm okay if he hits me, but he hit my little brother, something like that. It was only at that point that I started really like, cementing, okay, this is a character here who I'm meant to know. And then he goes to kill his dad and we see like the after effect of that later on. And with the girl who she didn't really speak all that much at all.
She did have a great ending though.
Yeah, the when she gave the smile, that was like, oh, okay, I'm going to remember this, but not so much everything else about you. The other one, Chris, I think his name was, he's kind of the more central figure of the kids.
And yes. It was a stylistic choice in a film that had very many of them that I think shot it in the foot because stylistically it's very quick cutting and flashing, and I think it communicates the wrong point, that montage. See, the montage that they do display to us communicated this point to me, and I think to you as well, that it's showing us a day in the life of his work.
Yes,
and you could also
100%.
misconstrue that as him and all the students being disinterested in this relationship, where we've seen in many movies to demonstrate a lead character is disengaged from their job, whether it be something as noble as a social worker or a psychologist or whatever, or nurse or whatever. You have a quick cutting of their life and them just kind of going through the motions. And that's what it displayed to me.
100%.
Until the next series of these sessions in which he finally got like drawn into this kid's abusive household and decided that he was going to take care of it. And that's the thing where it's like, it's a tricky thing. I don't know if that stylistic editing choice was meant to communicate that, and I don't think it is. I think it's just the film trying to quickly establish the 3 kids that he takes care of and how he will sort out their lives. But it communicated a point to me that I don't think was helpful in the long run of the film. But you could make an argument, though, right, that he doesn't actually care about these kids. He cares about himself. He's a selfish person. And so him being actually piqued in interest towards one of these kids because they have a thing that allows him to do what he loves to do, which is to look after himself, which is to kill someone. There's a point to be made there. What do you think about that?
I agree with most of that. I think there is a thing to be said of, to even further reinforce the point, like the room is very dark and kind of cramped looking, so it's another thing of like, oh yeah, day in his life, he's disinterested, and also his workplace, kind of reflects his personality. And also when he's done with the sessions, like he sits behind the desks and like listens to something, and it's like, oh, this is something that he's actually interested in. That was another thing that
I love that. That was cool.
That was getting in the way of it. Like, I have to talk to these kids. But to kind of go against it, there, at least on his end in the interviews, he did seem to have some level of investment, like the duty of care, like, look, I have to be doing these kind of things. There is a level of care there, and like the fact that they're not, matching it, does also lead to another thing of, there is something with this guy. Like at this point, we already know, or at least think that he's killed someone. So we know that there is a darker element to this character. This isn't going to be a good guy.
Well, that's the thing too. Sean William Scott's performance, we will get into it, but just to briefly touch upon it, he has such this looking through other people gaze that I couldn't tell at the beginning of this movie if he actually did care about these kids. So when we're going through this montage, I'm thinking, oh, this guy is disengaged with so I don't think of his relationship with his kids in any genuine sense, but then the movie plays out the way it does. But yeah, to me, just because of his coldness of his performance, I just don't, when I was getting into the first half of the movie, I didn't really get a sense that he genuinely was good. He's not good at his job, of course, but genuinely was invested in it.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think he was at 0%. That's basically it.
Yeah, no. By the end of the movie, I agree.
1% is still
By the end of the movie, I agree. But at the beginning, when we have this, we are getting accustomed to the tone of the movie, the setting, the environment, the dynamics. When we're in that, in the induction period of the movie, you don't know exactly the lay of the land. So when I saw this quickfire montage, that's what it communicated. Now, I don't think it's supposed to, but that's what it communicated. And so I go back to my initial criticism of, I would have liked it, instead of them doing quick, flashy, stylish scenes, have back-to-back those three scenes, but let them breathe and let the actors involved have a moment instead of quick, cut, and expecting us just to go, oh, I get the dynamics here immediately.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, because I also got the wrong information from that. I just thought that he wasn't at 0% disengaged, and kind of later on in hindsight, we learned that when he lived in the place previously, he had, buried bodies there. So you get a sense that okay, he has had this motivation already.
And you could gather.
So he was kind of waiting for okay, where's the thing that I really want?
Not only at that point, I mean, as soon as he gets his first victim and he puts the tape down and records them, that's when you know he's already done this before.
But we don't get that until after the montage.
Of which? Of him listening to... No, what I'm saying is what you referenced later in the movie as when he buried bodies at the previous place he worked at. What I meant was earlier than that in the movie, we, the audience, had already understood that he's had this pattern before from wherever he's been before.
Oh, yes, but what I'm saying is you can construe that the pattern before would have still been about bad fathers.
Yeah, no, 100%. Of course. Exactly. And with each serial killing scene, that's what he does. He goes through them. But no, I did enjoy this movie. I enjoyed the second half of it more, in which it was pressing down on him and his relationship with his mother and his wife and the police and the kids at the school, coming in on his precious serial killing lifestyle and how he had to manage it, but also he can't. He's not super clever because he has that inborn need to just keep doing it, to kill, and he has to stop himself, but it's really hard. When the kid does come to his house with the gun and how he wrestles not just shooting him in the fucking head right there. I enjoyed the back half of the movie, but again, there's this thing of I do wish that the front played around a little bit more, played around also in before the kills, just letting us see this guy's persona of family man, teacher man, social worker man, normal guy. Because yeah, we're just thrown into the serial killing stuff pretty quickly. And I just yearning for a version of this movie in which they rolled around in the mud a bit more when it comes to his actions affecting the lives of others. But it rather focuses on his actions affecting, well, his life. And so that's where my main criticisms at, and other things I have just come from low budget stuff, which I'm not going to hold majorly against the movie. Like 95% of the time it looks pretty decent, but there are just some moments in which the obvious lower budget does affect the film, but not enough for me to go, it's shit.
Yeah, a lot of the front half deals a lot with like the at-home life, you know, the new mother losing sleep, a lot of montages there of like waking up, you know, going on drives, things like that, which, I mean, it's all related to like the whole theme of like family man, family, you know, you got to protect these people, they're going through these things, got to make things better for them. But yeah, it would have been nice if we could divert, you know, some of that attention a bit more towards, yeah, the kids, the relationship with them.
Yeah, and even then, I would have liked some more time with him and his wife having like normal moments together, because the entire movie is them having like odd moments and moments that are putting them at a distance from one another. Just a little scene of them going on a date or something, or a little scene of them just sitting at home in the morning having breakfast and just having what appears to be, but a lot of those scenes that we do have in the movie are infiltrated by the creepiness of him and his mother. So you don't get to have that as much. But outside of just negging on the movie, I did love the look of the movie. This is a first-time feature film director. I think he's done documentary stuff in the past. I thought it was very well done visually. I thought they played up the different styles. You can tell that this is a person who has a deep affection for certain types of movies, and they are replicating them and homaging them in their film as one would like to do when you make a film. I loved the kind of riding the line of tone. I thought it did it really well. Like, it's kind of funny, but I would never say that I laughed in the movie. It was just kind of like, oh, that was kind of like the gaudy nature of the practical effects or the stylish filmmaking of the snap zooms and the iris effects and the shining of the knife and all of that I found like kind of amusing, going, oh, but
okay, amusing in the sense of like, oh, this is kind of the stuff that he's inspired by.
Yeah,
in
but
a sort
also,
of weird, cheesy kind of way.
Yeah. Like, you know, I don't want to pull this card that much during this, but Quentin Tarantino, right? Sometimes some of the funny things from his movies are the specific types of filmmaking techniques he likes to use. So, did you see Django Unchained?
Mm-hmm.
A laugh out loud moment from Django Unchained to me is every time he uses the snap zoom in that movie, just when the camera just snaps and zooms in on a person's face. It makes me laugh a lot in that movie. Now, inherently, is it actually that funny? No, but there is this kind of, we don't do that anymore, and we don't do it in that specific style. And
yeah,
so this had a lot of that, in which I found it amusing that it is implementing some of these what could be considered B grade, C grade, or even foreign techniques, and just putting them in this Sean William Scott serial killer movie. And so
I guess they were just played so straight that, yeah.
He was funny at points. Sean William Scott had some moments, like when he was murdering them, he had his moments where he just smiles and be like, thanks for telling me, man. And he's like brutally stabs them. And you know me, I have that kind of dark, twisted humor in which I see that type of thing. Hence, I brought up your favorite filmmaker, Nicholas
Winding Refn, yeah.
Winding or Winding Refn, who I find a lot of his movies very funny, and you not as much. And so, yeah, but I thought it rode the line really well of having some humorous moments without it being intrusive upon the actual premise. That's what I said. Like, this delivers on the premise seriously, but also delivers on the B-grade campiness at points, but the two don't outweigh each other and don't ruin each other.
I guess that's a better word. Campiness, I can agree with, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes with campiness, there's an inherent kind of fun value there. You don't have sad campy.
Well, there's definitely, people watch horror movies because they get a rush out of it. So, yeah, and this film definitely has, like we said, pretty realistic, stylized violence.
Yeah, practical violence.
Violence, very fast.
Yeah. Rubber. Oh, I love that rubber. And real blood. Like, real blood effect. Like, just people being sprayed with actual liquid on their face instead of CGI bullshit.
Yes, and Mum has to wipe a bit off.
Yeah. So, let's dive into the big thing. The lead performance.
Baby.
This is why...
Andrew.
Get out.
Mr. C.
As good or better than American Sniper, baby? Because there were many moments where it was clearly a doll.
I did think of American Sniper at a few points, but I didn't pick out any specific moments. So I guess if there were...
It's better than American Sniper.
It was
Hear
better
that,
than
Clint
American
Eastwood?
Sniper.
Sean William Scott. We're both familiar with him. We've both enjoyed his work in the past. I think me more than you, from my understanding, perhaps. I've seen more of his films than you. I've seen Stifler.
Yeah, that's true.
What was that, sorry? What did you say?
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
No, what I was going to say is I've enjoyed him in everything I've seen him in.
Yes, because you've seen him in Dude, Where's My Car, American Reunion... What else?
Dukes of Hazzard,
of course.
I should look at this film.
Evolution, by any chance? The David Duchovny movie?
No, I haven't seen that.
He's great in the movie The Rundown. I loved him there. Role Models. He was very fun in that. Goon. That's another one where he's like a ice hockey coach.
Which one's Role Models?
I think it's the one with McLovin in it, if I'm not mistaken, where they are having to look after kids and be like big brothers to them. And if I'm not mistaken, it's one of those ones that came out during the slew of 40-Year-Old Virgin. Yeah, Paul Rudd and Sean William Scott. And McLovin's in it too. And
I don't think I've seen it, but it sounds really familiar for some reason.
Some drunk reps to involve. So these two dumbasses have to enroll in a Big Brother program. Elizabeth Banks, McLovin, Jane Lynch, Ken Jeong is in it. So that was a fun movie. It came out in the slew of those late 2000s Step Brothers.
It sounds like comedies. It would be from then, yeah.
But we both enjoyed him. So what did you think? I mean, we both have a certain perception of who Sean William Scott is and what characters he plays, and this is drastically different to that. So what did you think?
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job. I almost didn't recognize him because I'm, so used to Chester from Dude, Where's My Car? I was like, I haven't seen his name in the thing that I was looking at before. This is him, right? Like, I can kind of see it here, but he's very different here. He's very cold, very blunt. Blunt. Yeah. When you get that one of those first shots of him going into the bed, go back to sleep, honey. It was like, ooh, This is a bit chilling.
He was also in Cop Out. We liked him in Cop Out as well, Sean William Scott. I do believe he was the one that they chained to the back of their car and then drove around, and he was screaming in pain. Yeah, and he was like the weaselly snitch guy. If I'm remembering.
Yeah, when you said Cop Out, I was like, was he like a criminal that they were stringing along or something?
Yeah, literally stringing.
I vaguely remember.
I loved him in Mr. Woodcock, the Billy Bob Thornton movie, in which the premise is, what if Billy Bob Thornton, your high school gym teacher, was now your stepfather? How'd that be? That's the movie. That's the pitch. He was in the Ice Age movies apparently as well.
Yeah, he was one of the rats or whatever.
Crash.
Yeah.
Not Bandicoot. But yeah, you were saying you found him very different, almost unrecognizable.
Also, yeah, he wasn't blonde in this one.
Yeah, he wasn't blonde. I've seen him not be blonde before. Obviously, he's not naturally blonde, so it wasn't a shock. I was really stunned because, and I don't mean this as an insult. This is a praising factor because the movie is using this. I've always thought that Sean William Scott characters have this underlying creepiness to them. Because Stifler is a creep. Like, Stifler's like a fucking rapey, weirdo creep. And then, Dude, Where's My Car? His character had, like, weird, misogynistic and transphobic moments. But he's always skirted around being like, but I'm in comedy. But he always has this intensity to his performances. Even in silly roles. He has this, like in Dukes of Hazzard, he has this intensity right next to Johnny Knoxville. There is this simmering energy just underneath the surface, this firecracker like rage that can quickly go up, or he plays like really slimy characters or cowards, and sometimes like in Evolution, Dude, Where's My Car? He just plays dumbasses really well. But I've always noted down that there's this kind of unsettling quality to a lot of the characters he plays and the energy he brings. And I said this to my wife and she agreed. I think he's that kind of guy who he's handsome, but in a scary way. Like, he's too handsome. There's just something about him where he's too good looking to the point in which it kind of irks you out a little. And it was perfect here. All of these things I've noted down about him as just these little things that recur all have been pulled together and brought to full focus in this film. And I thought it was great. I thought he nailed it. And he's a big horror movie fan as an actor, but he hasn't really got to act any. It said like the last one he was in was like one of the Final Destination movies. And I already know that he was just like a douchebag in it. Douchebag frat bro who probably died.
I think it said like, yeah, it was a supporting character.
Yeah, who probably just died or something, or was just the douchebag. But he has these eyes, these really intense eyes as an actor. And they use them so well here in which the intensity is just how coldly he stares through you. And I thought he was great. He carried the movie on his back. This is a definite, the actor is what you come to the movie for type film. That is at least my kind of takeaway. What about you? What do you think about that?
I think that's also true. Yeah, whenever I think of moments from this film, it is mostly him. Like the mum also was pretty creepy
She's in like 1,000 things, that actress.
In very different ways, yeah. The wife, she didn't do badly, but when you go on the Wikipedia page and you click on her name, it diverts you to the Italian Wikipedia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I guess that kind of tells you.
Was she Italian?
I guess.
Okay.
Yes, you could, and it took me a while to realize, like, oh, she's got a pretty noticeable accent here.
Yeah.
And some of her line deliveries were, a little bit off.
I just took it as English isn't her first language, and I think the movie
that's what I mean.
Played into that, where the mother and him kind of underestimated her abilities because she's just like this precious person.
Of like the three of them, like she is, to use this word in a different meaning, like the foreign element. Like these are two characters that,
who have a history.
They have a history together.
Routine.
It's a mum and a son. We see, flashbacks of like dark thing that they went through. And they both are very focused on the idea of family in a very, not abstract way,
deranged,
but in an esoteric way. Like there's more going on in their heads when they talk about family than you typically get.
The actress is from Cuba.
Cuba.
So
why not on the Cuban Wikipedia?
I don't know. I was confused when you said that. I was like, why Italian? I don't know. But I think that she has a very tough role in the movie, and a very unfortunate one, in which her character is in a movie, and when I say this, fun, it doesn't mean like funny or high energy. Just the fun of the movie is seeing these deranged freaks and how they work. She doesn't get to be. She takes away from the fun because she's the suffering housewife who's a new mother and she's struggling and she's cracking onto, there's this element that's unfortunate in which some of those type of characters, you need to really know how to work those as an actor and a writer. For instance, everybody loves Breaking Bad, but everybody shits on his wife Skylar because she by design is killing the fun of the show, which is you want to see Walter White break bad, and she is naturalistically reacting the way one would, where she's confused and appalled and disgusted by it. But you, the viewer, don't want that really. You want to see the bad people do bad things, and then maybe the cops will get them or something or other. But the wife at home with the baby is a thankless role in a lot of ways.
I think that's the perfect phrase, thankless role. Like even earlier when I was like saying the montage of them waking up to the baby, I was like, maybe divert some of that to the kids.
Right? But the film wants to play around with it because they have a certain avenue they want to go with her, in which she takes the step in the dark direction along with them and commits to being fucked up and evil as well, which was actually a genuine surprise to me. I didn't expect that. I actually didn't see that coming. So it actually was effective in that moment. But it doesn't mean that the role and the character is enjoyable to watch for the majority. I don't even blame the actress. I think it's just one of those, you're the woman in the movie role. You're the wife. Because this movie is playing with types. You're the creepy mum. You're the creepy lead serial killer man. You're the stern black cop. You're the kid who's upset. It plays around. It just does those types.
Yeah.
And which one of those is the least interesting? Oh, it's the wife. It's the woman. It's the wife. So I don't even have anything wrong with her performance. It's just, again, thankless role.
Yeah.
It's no Shelley, and she doesn't get to be like Shelley Duvall in The Shining, in which also, how many decades have people shit on Shelley Duvall in The Shining as being like, the wife character, but now people are like, no, that's like one of the most important roles in the film.
I was about to say, because I watched that one pretty late, like when we did the podcast, like I didn't really get that impression that
she got nominated for a Razzie.
Oh, there was a thing, wasn't there? Yeah.
For decades, people shat on that character and that performance because you're there to see Jack go crazy and really wild stuff in the hotel. But that's ruining the heart of the movie with that. And here, I wonder if we're just blinded to that. I'm blinded to that, at least.
Well, with the Shining thing, like I kind of think of like she's kind of the victim in the horror film for that one. So that feels a bit weird. Whereas in this one, she's kind of the motivation for the villain in a sense.
Yeah.
Because, he's got this whole thing about, family dynamics, the man in the family. Again, not in the most, if you haven't seen the film, not in the most traditional ways of like, you got to be a man and stand up to it. It's more about, being a, loving father, don't hit your kids kind of thing. Like no domestic abuse, no child abuse. And so we have this, dynamic between like the things that the people that he is killing are the people who break that. And also, he's got his own family. He's got the newborn child. He's got the wife. And he is not doing any of those things there. But there is still, something wrong with this dynamic here. And I guess maybe one of the things in my head that I was struggling with was like trying to see the connection there. Like me saying right now that, it's not ideal. That's kind of something that I didn't really vocalize until just 10 seconds ago when I'm kind of piecing it together.
Yeah.
Like when I was watching the film, I'm like, okay, we're getting all these scenes with the wife and the baby, but what does it... And there's an obvious theme connection of family, but what's the true meaning here?
Yeah, and I will commend the movie. It does have a lot of subtlety and quiet nuances and things it doesn't say out loud that make it so that people like us can determine our own values on the movie by talking to each other. Like you saying that right now, in which it's sparking off. That's what I like about this, because when I walked into this, I was just expecting a slash 'em up with Sean William Scott giving a creepy performance, but we got more than that. Like I really love the implied history that he has as a character with his mother, in which my read of it was that the dad probably saw them having some weird sexual relationship and he was like, well, I'm going to take you with me and not hurt you. But then he killed his dad because he's been beaten by him before. And he's ruining his relationship with his precious, precious mother. And then from there, those two have this kind of Norman Batesian type weird mother-son complex in which they become this killing team in which they motivate each other to do horrible things like that and have this warped perception of what is family. And that's kind of where I was drawn when it came to his backstory. And I think that's kind of where it wants you to go with it. Well, what about you? What did you think? Because you also said earlier that you could have used more from the mum character and understanding.
It was more that, there might have been more that could have been done with her. I actually quite enjoyed her performance, the
young version was great too, actually.
That's true, yeah. It was actually almost to a point where I was like, oh yeah, that's the young version of this character that we know. Like,
right.
It took me a second to be like, oh yeah, this is a character I know from later.
Yeah.
I like the subtleties of that mother character because, when you first meet her, she comes into the hospital. It's like, oh, there's the baby. Oh,
and she seems like kind of a bit clueless.
Doesn't
wash her
like,
hands.
Gotta wash your hands, and then just throughout, she just like has little lines here that's like, earlier, later in the film when the cop asks the wife, has your husband been absent at night at any point? And like the mum just like somewhat casually but somewhat forcefully says like, no, he's a loving father.
Yeah.
And that kind of like put pressure on the mum, and I was like, ooh, damn, like what would I say in that situation? Because I feel like I would have been honest, but like after that,
right?
He's here.
He's never here, and he's distant and weird. One of the things I thought was brilliant about her is you in movies have to accept sometimes that these characters are related, even though they look nothing alike. Yeah. And you just have to accept that because that's reality. But she does a marvelous job with her face and specifically her death stare to replicate what Sean William Scott's face is like. Because there's that moment in the hospital where the nurse is curt with them, the very first time when she's curt with them.
Let me do my job thing.
Yeah, when you see both the mother and Sean William Scott react in the exact same way with the exact same facial expressions. And
I gotta have another look at that.
I honestly was like, wow, this is like mother and son, definitely. Even though obviously they're not in real life, but there was just this moment where I'm like, oh fuck, this is and that's acting, just silent acting, not displaying anything with exposition. You just know. And so when there was that, I gotta be real with you, there were some twists in this movie that actually took me off guard. I was like, wow, I didn't actually know that. I didn't see that coming. Like, who killed the nurse? I was like, oh yeah, it's Sean William Scott, of course.
Yeah, that one.
that one was like a genuine surprise, but then that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that one was really interesting because I was thinking earlier, like, he kills the nurse, and as we start to learn this character, I'm like, okay, people that wronged him. But then you get like the whole motivation with the father. So I kept thinking to myself, like,
why would he kill a woman?
Why would he kill the nurse? Like, just because she was annoying? Because
she was rude to the wife.
And then I was thinking, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, is it he's killing people that his wife wouldn't approve of? But no, they haven't really gone into that so much. She's never really talked about abuse. And so when it was the mum, I was like, oh, this is different. And then it cut to what Sean William Scott was actually doing, and it was like, yeah. So even though I had a thing of like, why would he kill her? Like the actual reveal of like, because no, didn't really get
it was
me.
set up well because when earlier he had come to the hospital and his bloody plastic bag or whatever was hanging out the trunk of the car, the mum saw it and diverted the wife away. So from that, the mum knows what he does, and then she confirms it by saying, I'm so glad that you're looking after yourself, and like wipes the blood off and all of that, confirming that she knows what he does. So then when she does it herself later and he sees that on the news and gives her a knowing look like, I know that you did that, it sets up this implied history that you have, that these two are aware of what they do, and they are both supportive in a family-like manner about it. But what was great is it makes sense. Ideology, like serial killer mentality, makes sense because his whole thing is he stops people from hurting these kids. And she kills the nurse because she hurt her kids, her son, Sean William Scott's feelings.
Right.
So she killed the nurse. And also she's insulting the grandson as well, the nurse. It keeps tying back to the mother and the son. Like, his mother and him have the same mentality for serial killing, which is the prevention of hurting of kids. But since her kid is a full-grown man, that doesn't mean any different to her. It's still her son and her grandson. So I thought that was a brilliant move.
That is really good.
And it doesn't say it out loud. That's just me getting something from the movie. I thought that was really well done. I thought, wow.
I was about to say, like, I wonder what her motivation was, but I think you already answered that. Because that fits, yeah.
It fits. But yeah, this is a real... We'll let you color it in sometimes movie. Not all of it. Like, we've colored in most of it. You have a crayon and you have a go, because it makes the movie more engaging to do that, rather than just telling us, well, you see, when he was a little boy, him and his mum had sex, and then blah, 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 and just exposition. It is the film displaying it out in chunks and letting you fill it in. And I thought that was really well done. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I'd like to say. Anything else you'd like to touch on here with Bloodline? I loved the ending. I love the end shot.
Yeah,
welcome to the fucked up family shot.
When I was watching it, I did get this sense of, like, somehow I think he's gonna get away with it, but I wasn't sure, like, how the mum would fit into that. Like, the mum's kind of causing problems for him, but he loves her.
Maybe his mum will kill her. That was always on the table.
It was like, well, how can he fix this situation without damaging the family? Like, what's going to happen? And the fact that the mum, takes a turn to committing a crime as well is like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it works on the cop.
Yeah, but he knows. Like, you can tell he knows, but he can't do shit. He knows he can't do shit. Especially when he's about to leave and Sean William Scott's mum.
Thank you,
officer, for coming by, blah, blah, blah. Like, he knows. Like, that's such bullshit. Again, brilliant performances, great character dynamics. I just could have used with a little bit more at the beginning so that the second half felt a little earned a bit more, because I loved the second half. I'm like, oh man, this works, but could have worked a bit better with a bit of a better first half. And there were just some stylistic choices that I went, that could have been done better, maybe just budget and first time filmmaking. I found it a bit weird that they telegraphed so early in the shot that the wife was just going to shoot that kid in the head. Like, just very too obvious with her, like, lifting up the shirt. It just kind of lingered a little too long. So the surprise of it was kind of let out more than I think that I would have preferred.
For me, it didn't bother me as much because I wasn't fully seeing where the scene was going. Like, part of me was like, oh, is she returning the gun or something? Because the gun belonged to him. It's like, oh, no, wow.
I knew as soon as they introduced the gun, somebody's going to get shot.
Well, the fact that the way that was set up too, because, like, Sean William Scott takes the gun, and then as he's leaving to take him out, he, like, puts it deliberately on, like, leaves it at home. I'm like, oh, okay.
But, yeah. I would watch it again.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I think this would be an interesting group night type movie.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because it's not too scary. Like, it's not too gruesome in which it could turn everybody off. It also has that stunt casting factor of, oh, this actor that I know being goofy guy, being serious guy. It has slight moments of those camp horror elements that can thrill and chill people. And I think it just has a pretty interesting little story about a social worker who decides to kill the people who's wronging his clients. And I think that's actually a really fun pitch for a horror, like a serial killer story, don't you? I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah, it is.
And just the thrills that you get of seeing a guy trying to get away with something. I love those. to kind of finish off my train of thoughts with this, and I'll pass it over to you, and if you have any closing thoughts or if you do recommend, but I just want to say, filmmaking technique that I just am a sucker for. It's not breaking the mold, but I'm a real sucker for these things. Brings a smile to my face every time.
No, the close-ups.
No, close-ups on babies being born. No, I love in movies where there's a scene happening. In this one, it is the policeman is sniffing out the possibility of Sean William Scott being the killer, and the mum just looks over and the camera pans over to a sharp object in the room that she's like thinking, could I kill him with that?
In the drawer.
Oh no, that was another one. There was the knife, but there was also like, they have this weird kind of big, tall, like silvery statue thing on their countertop. That like...
Oh yeah, I noticed that very early in the film.
Yeah.
And then when she was looking at it, I'm like, oh, was this a setup?
Yeah, she's contemplating. I'm a sucker for those. Every time there's a little part of me that chuckles on the inside when I see those shots, because I'm just like, I love when films just want to visually tell me that this character is contemplating killing another. And it's better than just say the character's holding a knife behind their back and waiting to stab. I just love when you see the camera do a POV and look over to some random object in the room, and you know the character's thinking, I could do it with that object. That'd be. And I just go, are they going to do it? I hope not. And then they don't. And it was, that's it. That's all I've got for you. I recommend it. It's a very underseen movie. No one really talks about this.
Yeah, I have to also recommend it. Just one thought that keeps sticking in my head is not in the sense of like, oh, this will fix the film, but I kind of wish it was longer just so I could watch it a bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That, maybe another 5 minutes wouldn't go astray.
I'd even go for 6.
I would even go for 6, Ryan. So recommendation for next episode is The Listening People. And I think it's time to revisit a trilogy of movies that we have only seen one of, the third one of, precisely. So we're seeing the second one now.
Working our way backwards.
Next Friday. That's the film, not next Friday. We'll give you an episode.
Hey guys, we are watching it second.
Yeah, we're watching the second one second. Are you happy now? If you want to know why this is the case, tune in next week.
But Ryan, doesn't this one have a different co-star?
I don't know.
Oh.
I've never seen it. How would I know?
I thought that was a thing in our... What's the one Friday?
Oh, isn't it Chris Tucker?
Yeah, wasn't
in
there...
them?
In the one that we did do
an
episode...
It was Mike Epps.
Yeah, wasn't there a whole thing of like, yeah, it was all right, but they changed the co-star to this guy.
Yeah.
The other guy was so iconic.
True.
For us, it's the opposite. It's like, they changed the co-star.
Yeah, you're right. Well, we'll talk about it all next episode, so tune in for that. In the meantime, you can hit us up, as I said, on the social medias, Facebook and Twitter, under Spit and Polish Presents. You can suggest movies to us under those, or our email at spitandpolished@gmail.com. Please feel free to rate and review us on whatever podcast hosting site allows you to do so. It would be greatly appreciated. Bartek, it was good talking to you. I was worried when you did the flip it back on me that you're going to do the I actually didn't really like this movie, and I was going to be surprised. Like, honestly, I wasn't going to be that surprised, because I was like, this has some elements of movies we've done on the pod that Bartek doesn't care for as much. Like, I saw it and said, oh, it's visually dark. Bartek's going to have a real hard time with this one.
It was brave of them to hire a black actor, though, for a film this dark.
Okay, Bartek's just going to leave that there, that comment.
It's hard to see Sean William Scott.
He did have dark facial hair, so it did make him hard to see.